This is 5 on Crew, where you'll find tips, ideas, and insights to help you lead crew ministries with teenagers. Today's study is the 5 on the Telling Others study. We'll give you a few tips here and ideas to help you lead that study better. So this is a study on the Holy Spirit, not just evangelism. And now, it's really about both. I'll give you that. But hear me out. This whole study, the 4-series study on the Holy Spirit, it's about the Holy Spirit. The first one is about who the Holy Spirit is and how he works in our lives. The second one is how do you live your life day by day being empowered by the Holy Spirit? How does that work? It talks about spiritual breathing and making it a day in, day out thing. The next 2 series in the studies, Love Others by Faith, and then this one, which is Telling Others, is about practically how do you put that into practice in your life. So the first one is how do you use the Holy Spirit to help you love people that are really unlovable to you. You're not doing it with your own power, you're doing it through the Holy Spirit's power. Not really a lesson on love, it's a lesson about the Holy Spirit. This second one on Telling Others, or I guess it's the 4th study on Telling Others, is really a lesson on the Holy Spirit in practice. How do you tell other people about Jesus? Now, this is an excellent lesson on just evangelism. How do you share your faith? But I want to challenge you as a leader to focus this study on the Holy Spirit. Talking about Jesus is for everyone. Now, question number 6 will take us to Acts 1:8. A great passage that just simply talks about God giving us the Holy Spirit so that we will be his witnesses to the rest of the world, all over the world. In this question, I would challenge you to turn the conversation to help them understand that sharing the gospel with people, telling people about Jesus, is the job of every Christian. Not just for a pastor, not for a priest, not for a youth leader, but for every Christian. And that's why God gave each of us the Holy Spirit. Again, the Holy Spirit is the power source that helps us do the things that God has called us to do. And it's no wonder that we're terrified to share a faith with people if we're not walking in the Spirit and accessing that power source. This is an excellent time in the study for you to just go back and recap some of the things they've already learned. Draw the 3 circles and the thrones, and with Christ on the throne or self on the throne, and remind them about that. Talk about spiritual breathing again and what that means day in and day out. How do you do that? When do you do that? Repetition is really important with this stuff, so talk to them about that. And that will also prime them for the rest of this study where they learn how do they put that into practice with evangelism. Great tips on evangelism. Question number 7 is a little bit rough. It's a good question, but it might students might not be really open with it. It might be hard to start conversation. So you can notice under the teacher's notes, underneath the question, it's got 5 great points on evangelism, and I would encourage you to use those. If conversation is a little slow on this one, then my suggestion is this. Say something like, I've noticed some things in Philip's story that point us to how we can do evangelism today. And here they are. Listen to God, go, do all 5 of those points. And then ask 2 questions. 1, ask, where do you see this, maybe listen to God, in Philip's story? And have them go dig it out. Have them tell you where they see it. And then question number 2 is, how can you do this in your life today and in your relationships today? How can you listen to God about evangelism in your relationships today? How can you go in your relationships today? Asking those 2 questions will really bring these verses home to your students and bring out these great 5 points on evangelism. 4, bring it home. Question 8 is the bring it home question. When we ask them to think about people in their lives who they can share their gospel with or who need to know Jesus. And let me just suggest to you to really take this one seriously. Have them list names or mention names of people that they would like to see God work in their lives. Without this step, if you want to just kind of glaze over this step, what you will end up with is probably a nice lesson that they'll eventually forget. But if you push into this and help them think about people that they can begin praying for and even talking to, this could very well be the beginning of a change in the way they think about people and view people, and viewing people through Jesus's eyes. So I challenge you to take the time on this one to really get into who can we share Christ with. On question 9, this is a great definition that really helps us understand what it is that evangelism is and what it isn't. And it helps us understand that this is the Holy Spirit's job and we can trust him with it, but we also have a role in it. So I would challenge you to not go too quickly through this definition and this last question, and instead take it phrase by phrase and talk about each of them. And again, ask, how can we apply this in our lives today? So let's look at each phrase and see what we can do with it. Taking the initiative. This means taking the first step forward with the intention of starting a conversation that will lead toward Jesus. Doesn't mean that you have to talk about Jesus, but you're taking the initiative with the hopes and prayers of getting there. To share Christ. Just like Philip, we need to keep the conversation focused on Jesus. He's the only one that can change their lives. So let's introduce them to him and keep the conversation focused on him. By the power of the Holy Spirit. This is where we step forward by our own initiative, but we're trusting that the Holy Spirit will be the power in our words, be the power in knowing what to say and how to say it, that he would guide our every step along the way. It's taking a step forward and saying, Father, I know you're calling me to this, and I trust you to do your work through me. I trust that you will give me the words. I trust that you will work in this person's heart. And so that's doing it by the power of the Holy Spirit. It's not relying on Mark to convince this person that they need Jesus. That's all on me, and I want nothing to do with that. If the Holy Spirit's not working in their lives, I can do nothing for them. And leaving the results to God. It is not your responsibility to save someone or to change their lives or change their hearts. It is God's responsibility. So leave it in his hands. It's not even your responsibility for them to want to talk to you about it. You take the initiative to share Christ by the power of the Holy Spirit, and you leave the results to God. Maybe they'll talk to you. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll laugh in your face. Maybe they'll pray to receive Christ and change their lives. It's all up to God. So we leave the results to God, and that is successful witnessing. So this is what we talked about. 1, this is a study on the Holy Spirit, not evangelism. 2, talking about Jesus is for everyone. 3, we had some great tips on evangelism. 4, we talked about bringing it home. 5, the definition of successful witnessing. So that is our 5 on the Telling Others study. I hope you learned some stuff and enjoyed it. If you have any questions or tips for other people or comments, leave a comment at the bottom of this study page and share with us. We all want to grow in this study together. Maybe you have some ideas of how we can better lead this study. Share it with us. Hey, thank you so much for the role you're playing in building spiritual movements among teenagers. We'll see you next time.